So why, I asked, do we do all those things? John lit up with a smile. Because if you believe in a God like that, you'll do whatever you can to become closer to him. Once I commented to him after reading a book set in India that Krishna seemed to be very like Christ to me. John smiled again. Of course, surely God is big enough to present himself in different ways to different creeds and races. For a Lutheran, he was a very good Unitarian. Perhaps that's why I felt I was coming home when I first came here. John, like Bernadette, found praying on his knees a waste of time. He prayed when he went fishing. Then he cleaned and distributed his catch to his friends, many of whom were having a desperately hard struggle to provide for their families through the rural recession of the late 80s and early 90s. Thinking about Bernadette and about the influences of Wilf and John on the person I have become, I recognised and was comfortable with much of who I was, and I also began to recognise again how much like my father I am. My father was a leader and an academic of very high repute. He was also an intensely practical man and a committed Christian. He served his God through his rather austere personal moral code, his deep enjoyment of the natural world around him, and through his total commitment to his students. He gave them knowledge, he encouraged them to appreciate the beauty of the art of engineering and the satisfaction of performing to the highest possible standards, and he served their enjoyment of life by participating in and advising them on almost all of the pranks played by the engineering students on Prosh Day during his time at the university. For my father, there was no divide between work and worship, or between prayer and service. They went hand in hand. I am in many ways very obviously my father's daughter. I am very similar to him in looks. I'm often outspoken as he was. I try to maintain a moral code that is a watered-down version of his austerity. And I discovered quite early in my adult life that I had inherited in a small way his talents for leadership and teaching, and a need to express my joy in life and in my God through service. Throughout my life, my ability to teach has taken on a greater or lesser importance as circumstances dictate. Although not trained as a teacher, it was an occupation that was open to me at a time when jobs for women graduates were quite limited, and one I accepted gladly for a few years. On Kangaroo Island, I became involved as a volunteer at the primary school, and for 10 years as the supervisor of the Lutheran Sunday School, which focused on love and enjoyment through a wonderful outreach program. On leaving the island, I believed I'd left my teaching days behind, and I almost forgot the deep pleasure of watching children gain knowledge and achieve through the knowledge. It was then a bit of a shock and a source of delight to be invited to become a teacher again, albeit in a very different setting. This invitation is the reason I rarely appear here on Sundays. You see before you a trainee instructor of the Clare Dog Club, obedience-based dog club, which teaches dog owners how to enjoy their dogs and how much fun it is to teach obedience for both ends of the lead. I thoroughly enjoy this work, and the knowledge I am gaining through working with the other dog owners is actually quite invaluable. Once again, I'm finding great pleasure in serving the members of a small community and seeing the joy a little knowledge can give to people. One of the first people I worked with was Pauline. She came, frightened, unsure, with very little self-confidence, wishing to improve her relationship with her much-adored little dog. We all agreed she'd recently undergone some trauma, but chose to support her rather than to pry, to serve her rather than to fix her problems. And as we worked together, Pauline's belief in herself improved enormously. We, the instructors, gained a great deal of pleasure from watching Pauline blossom. Her delight at the effectiveness of the rewards-based methods and the lovely nature of her little dog delighted us, and Pauline quickly became a very valuable, happy, and reasonably confident member of our club. And I personally gained a good, though casual, friendship with a truly gentle woman. In the face of all the tragedies and traumas of the world, the small acts of service enacted at Clare each Sunday morning seem almost pointless. But I'm reminded as I think of them of the story of the man walking along a beach littered with cast-up horseshoe crabs as the result of a storm. Walking along, he'd stoop and toss crabs back into the sea. Another walker remonstrated with him. What was the point, with the thousands of crabs dying on the beach, of bothering to throw a few back? It would make no difference to the impact the storm had had on the population of horseshoe crabs. The first man simply stooped and tossed another crab back into the sea, saying, "Sure makes a difference to that crab." Thinking about my life, I'm a bit like the man with the crabs. I'm a very busy, very ordinary person. I enjoy being busy, and I enjoy serving people around me, and I choose to communicate with my God through that service. I do not carry the aura of great leadership of my father, who, like all great leaders, and I quote, built enduring greatness through a paradoxical combination of personal humility and professional will. But I realise I am choosing life in my ordinariness by giving joy and knowledge to people through serving them. I do enjoy being here in this church, in the friendly, open-minded atmosphere of this congregation. I enjoy the warmth of the services and the thought-provoking addresses. But these are things I do for me. It is good to receive the joy of these services bring, but for the time being, I'm happier living by giving what I can through the small service I can offer to the members of the dog club. And the questions that started me off on this path, the question of bullying, I have no answers there other than to care for the people at both ends of the equation. Maria knows my high-achieving friend only as a bully, but I know her as a person who chooses life, a caring, deeply thoughtful person who'd probably be horrified to know of the effect she had on the people she worked with, and who fought hard to help bring about many changes that have benefited her own community. I feel saddened to have heard of her effects on others, but I wonder if perhaps the answer to my conundrum lies in my choice of words to describe her actions. My friend is probably a helper and a fixer, not a server. I do know I have a tendency to be a fixer too, and that I am as capable of uncaring complacency as she is. I consider myself extremely fortunate that through the influence of my parents and my gentle friends, I have had the opportunity to learn the difference between helping and serving, and been able to discover the gifts I can gain through that service. I hope my present life choices are engineered out of the joy of service and not through complacency, though I suspect the latter just might be the truth. Sometimes it seems rather trite to be gaining so much joy and pleasure through giving service to dogs. Maybe somewhere further down the track of my life, I'll be able to pick up some of the harder challenges again, but maybe not. This present small service may be the one that is right for me into the next stage of my life. So I shall continue to be here in spirit more often than bodily. I'll continue to serve my God through serving the community of my dog club. And I'll look forward enormously to the rare occasions when I can tear myself away from them to come down to join you. I'd like to finish with a reading from The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. Philippe Ray sat back on the bench and stared at the ancient olive trees defining the edge of the garden. There's an old Jewish story, he commented, that says, in the beginning, God was everywhere and everything, a totality. But to make creation, God had to remove himself from some part of the universe, so something besides himself could exist. So he breathed in, and in the places where God withdrew, there creation exists. So God just leaves, John asked, angry, abandons creation. You're on your own, apes. Good luck. No, he watches. He rejoices. He weeps. He observes the moral drama of human life and gives meaning to it by caring passionately about us and remembering. Matthew 10, verse 29, Vincenzo Giuliano said quietly, "Not one sparrow can fall to the ground without your Father knowing it." But the sparrow still falls, Philippe said.